Dropshipping has been made out to be one of the easiest businesses to start in 2023. This is thanks to people posting all over TikTok, YouTube, Instagram Reels. You see it all the time, especially those like viral TikTok trends where they're like day one, $0, day two, $30, day three, like I got a Lamborghini. So it's very clickbaity and very engaging, but there's definitely a lot of truth to it. It is truly one of the few online businesses that has such a low barrier to entry. There's not really a high cost involved with it. Pretty much anyone can do it. You can do it from your laptop, maybe even your phone if you really tried. But with all the glorification that we see on these short form platforms, it sometimes clouds the real truth about dropshipping. Now, there are struggles that come along with dropshipping, and I'm gonna warn you about all of them in this video. That way, when you're scaling your dropshipping business, you don't run into any headaches and everything runs smoothly and you're making as much money as possible. So this is the ugly truth about dropshipping. Let's get right into it. The first thing that not a lot of people talk about when they're showing you their revenue or they made like $4 million on their Shopify store is the fees that come along with an e-commerce brand or a dropshipping store. We've got fees from PayPal, fees from Shopify, advertising costs, chargebacks and refunds, and other fees like if you're outsourcing web design or ad creatives. Let's be brutally honest here, but you probably already know this, that 100% of the revenue is not 100% of the profit that you take home. If you're running a dropshipping store, expect to incur these fees. And if you're running paid advertisements to your Shopify store, you can expect a profit margin of around 15 to 30%, which is not bad, right? So if you're making $100,000 in revenue a month and you're taking home $15,000 to $30,000, that's still really good. And I know people say that's such a low margin in general, but these people probably don't know about how businesses generally work. When I was working in supply chain and working with a bunch of manufacturers, they were all aiming to get like 20% profit margins. And they're multi-billion-dollar companies, so there's nothing wrong with having 15 to 30% profit, especially if you're running the business on your own. And it's so easy to improve your margins, so even if you're at 15%, there's a lot of steps you can take to get up to that 30%. Now this next number is absolutely insane. So if you're running organic traffic to your Shopify store and you're generating revenue that way, your margins are a lot higher. Advertising cost is one of the biggest expenses, so if you take that out of the equation, you can expect to see 50 to 75% profit margins. So if you get a viral TikTok or an Instagram Reels, and let's just say you hit $100,000 in revenue for the month. With this organic traffic, you can expect to take home $50,000 to $75,000. Now that is a big profit margin right there, and that's what everyone wants to strive for. But on the other hand, organic traffic is not as sustainable and is not as scalable as paid traffic through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. A good thing to do is actually mix up both of the two, or start off with organic, and then once you save up enough money, start moving into paid so you can really scale, generate more revenue, and really A/B test a lot of things. Now, another thing that I see really like nobody talking about, especially on YouTube or TikTok, is customer service. Now, I've told this story before, but everyone's mindset in the beginning is to get as many sales as possible, as fast as possible, but they don't think about the back end stuff. Say you get a viral TikTok or your ads are performing really well on Facebook and you start to generate hundreds of orders a day, you're gonna have some customer service headaches. Not everyone's gonna love their item. Some of the shipments might not even make it to the customer, and then you have to deal with all of this. If you don't have your customer service channels set up properly, you're gonna potentially lose a lot of customers, a lot of returns, and you are probably gonna lose some money. It's really important to not put this on the back burner, and once you start posting ads, expect to have some customer complaints come in and get ready to deal with them. I'll give you a couple solutions really quick. There's a lot of customer service apps that you can add onto your page. One thing that really helped me was a frequently asked questions page. Once you gather enough data about what kind of questions people are generally asking about your products, they can click on that page or be directed to that page, and they'll probably answer it for them so you don't have to. Also, what I like to do on my business email is whenever someone messages it, it automatically sends them the entire list of the frequently asked questions, and it says at the end, if this didn't answer any of the questions that you have, please send a follow-up email and a customer service rep will get back to you. Now, when I first started, I scaled without having customer service in place, and I got a ton of emails, and it was such a nightmare and kind of scary. But once I implemented the frequently asked questions along with the automatic email response, I would say around 80 to 90% of the requests that came in were actually answered by those, and only 10 to 20% left that I had to answer. It made this so much easier. It took it all off my plate, and that's just one quick fix that's super easy to do. If you're just starting off, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind because it really is important and you don't want to deal with that stress later on. The next nightmare that no one really talks about in dropshipping is supply chain. So I come from a supply chain background, so I know a little bit about it, more than the average person, I would say. But it's really important because even if you looked at COVID-19 when it was ruining the world essentially. It was destroying lives and as well as supply chains and businesses. So shipping times were up, shipping costs were up, people weren't receiving their packages, they had to have their packages specially delivered in some places, like with some health protocols, I guess. It just made the whole entire system a lot harder. And let alone a lot of the products that are manufactured in China were on lockdown, so they really couldn't produce anything, let alone ship it out. That caused a big headache. Luckily for me, I had an agent that had a warehouse other places besides China. I did have to pay a little bit more for shipping and the shipping times were a little bit slower, slower, but all in all, it worked out. Now, when I talk about supply chain, it can be anything from operations, logistics, to procurement, and everything in between. But my best advice for you is to really get an agent or a supplier that is really good at communicating with you and can give you expected lead times and foresee any issues that they might have, or if it's Chinese New Year and they can't get out the product. You really want to sift through a bunch of suppliers until you find the one that's the best at communicating and works for you. All in all, supplier relationships are really important and a key component of your business. Now let's talk about refunds and returns, right? I get a lot of questions on that. Refunds and returns do happen and you do have to deal with them. Otherwise, you're going to get chargebacks and people are going to call their banks and you're going to get fraud charges and potentially your PayPal is going to be shut down or your Shopify is going to be shut down. So you want to avoid all that. And how do people deal with returns? Well, there's a couple different ways to do it. One, you could use a virtual mailing address. So I actually have a virtual mailing address in Arizona. It's kind of my business address where I have all my legal paperwork sent and I also have any refunds and returns, and they hold it for me and store it for me until I want to pick it up or tell them to send it back or trash it. That's a really good thing to do because you don't want to have your personal address on there. You don't want people, sending a bunch of packages back to your house, or maybe you do, it's up to you. I also give them the other option of sending it back to the supplier, but if the product did happen to come from China this time, they really don't want to send it back to Shenzhen or wherever it came from. So most of the time they opt into sending it to the virtual mailing address and then I issue the refund. In the end, the best way to avoid refunds and returns is really just providing good customer service, a quality product, and make sure your shipping times are listed accordingly on your website. All right, let's talk about ad frequency and issues that can come along with paid advertising. Everyone's racing to get that winning product out and then they're racing to get that winning ad creative out to make the most money, right? But what a lot of people don't talk about is once they get a winning product, sometimes it doesn't last forever. And also the ad creatives don't last forever. If you've got a small audience size and there's not that many people interested in your product, but it is selling, you can expect in like 2 to 3 weeks that you're gonna need to update your ad creative because the frequency is getting too high. And the frequency is measured by how many times on average a single person has viewed your ad. For example, if your ad frequency comes back at 3, that means on average, whoever has viewed your ad has seen it 3 times. And you're basically just sending out the same ad over and over to someone that does not want to convert. Now that's an issue, and that's when people start seeing their ROAS drop from advertisements and they don't know what's going on. That's the first thing I always tell people to look into. And the best way to avoid that is continuously A/B and test creatives, A/B and test products, do some different retargeting campaigns. That's really going to help with this and avoid that headache and basically solve that mystery of why your ads all of a sudden just stopped working. All right, let's talk about taxes. Well, technically I can't give you any tax advice. I'm not a legal professional, but what I can say is you do have to pay taxes. In most countries, in most states, you will have to pay tax. So just make sure to set aside some money for taxes to pay at the end of the year, or if you pay quarterly. Like, that's all that I can actually say on it. I can't give you any tax advice. I do recommend looking at your local, state, or government taxes to see how you have to pay and how much you might have to pay per order, or it might even come down to the end of the year and your total net profit. Keep that in mind. I do work with a tax professional. I do have my own personal CPA, so he does all that work for me. But in the end, you may be asking yourself, after all these headaches I just talked about, is dropshipping worth it? I can say in full sincerity that is definitely worth it. It teaches you so many high income skills. It generates fast cash. It's overall just a really great business experience. You can start off dropshipping and then turn into a brand where you're warehousing your own product. The sky is really the limit. It's how far that you want to take it, how hard you want to work on it. But there are so many businesses out there that have started dropshipping and now they're full multi-million or billion-dollar businesses. Dropshipping is just a logistics model. It's not a business model. So always remember that. In the end, you're running a business and you're using dropshipping as a fulfillment method. I hope this video answered some of the questions that you might have about dropshipping or eased your worries about starting dropshipping. Trust me, when I started, I had the same exact questions. I really didn't know what to do. I just learned as I went. But I wanted to put this video out there to help some of you guys that are just starting out. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment down below if you want to see a specific video or you have a request. All right, with all of that being said, have a great rest of your day.